I know this is one of the best weeks of our lives here. We come here and we see everybody we know, but also, be part of the event. So who knows what Cambridge have in store for next year? I'm curious, but it's going to be hard to beat. So, but so far so good.
Oh, Dan.
The call came at 2 a.m. Adam Silver, commissioner of the most successful basketball league on the planet, was wide awake staring at spreadsheets that made his blood boil. 3 major sponsors had just pulled millions from the WNBA. 2 more were threatening to walk, and every single one of them said the same thing. You had Caitlin Clark, and you blew it. Silver didn't just lose his cool. He lost it completely. Because for the first time in his career, he watched a league under his watch turn gold into dust, and the person responsible was sitting in an office pretending everything was fine. The numbers didn't lie, and they were absolutely brutal. State Farm, one of the WNBA's longest-standing partners, had privately expressed serious concerns about renewing their deal. Nike, who just signed Clark to a massive contract, was furious that their investment was being undermined by the league's own mismanagement. AT&T, Anheuser-Busch, and Google all had similar conversations with league officials. The message was crystal clear. We paid for Caitlin Clark's star power, and you're letting it get destroyed. Reports from inside those corporate offices revealed something even more damning. Sponsors weren't just disappointed, they felt deceived. They'd been sold on a vision of the WNBA's future with Clark as the centerpiece, the face that would finally break women's basketball into mainstream consciousness. Instead, they watched her get hammered game after game while commentators downplayed her impact and league officials stayed silent. The financial stakes were staggering. Industry insiders estimated the WNBA stood to lose anywhere from 40 to 60 million in sponsorship revenue if these deals fell through. For a league that had never turned a profit in its entire 28-year history, this wasn't just bad news. It was catastrophic, and Adam Silver knew exactly who to blame.
I honestly just got so triggered by Caitlin Clark's golf debut, and it is no fault of hers that I got upset. It is the fault of the WNBA because the LPGA just did everything that the WNBA should have been doing this season. They did it all correct in literally one day.
Let's talk about what Caitlin Clark actually did for the WNBA because the numbers are absolutely insane. Her debut game against the Connecticut Sun drew 2.1 million viewers on ESPN, making it the most watched WNBA game in 23 years. Every single game she played in shattered ratings records. The Indiana Fever went from averaging about 4,000 fans per game to selling out arenas with 17,000 screaming fans. Road games became home games because half the crowd showed up wearing Clark jerseys. Merchandise sales exploded by over 500%. Her jersey became the fastest-selling piece of WNBA apparel in league history, outselling entire teams' catalogs combined. The Fever's season ticket sales jumped from around 2,000 to over 13,000 in a matter of weeks. Secondary market prices for tickets to Fever games were going for hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars. This wasn't just growth. It was a seismic shift in how people viewed women's basketball. Television networks were literally fighting for broadcast rights to Fever games. ESPN moved games to primetime slots. ABC put her on national television. Social media engagement for the WNBA increased by over 400%, with Clark's highlights generating tens of millions of views. She was doing for the WNBA what LeBron did for the NBA, what Tiger did for golf. She was the generational talent every league dreams of, the one who brings in people who never cared before. Sponsors saw these numbers and thought they'd struck gold. They threw money at the WNBA, expecting the league to protect and promote this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. What they got instead made them sick.
The LPGA understand what's great for business. Not what's good for business, what's great. It'd be nice if the WNBA could get with the program. It'd be nice if you didn't allow your greatest asset to get beat up and hacked and fouled 94 feet and be targeted since day one of stepping into the league. It'd be nice. It'd be smart. You'd be better off. But you guys are going to do what you want to do.
From day one, something felt off about how the WNBA handled Caitlin Clark. She wasn't just playing basketball, she was being targeted and everyone could see it. Chennedy Carter's infamous hip check that sent Clark sprawling wasn't called a flagrant. It took the league 3 days to upgrade it, and even then, the response felt forced. Angel Reese celebrated the hit, and instead of addressing the unsportsmanlike conduct, commentators and analysts defended it as physical basketball. The fouls kept coming. Flagrant elbows, hard screens, unnecessary contact 90 feet from the basket. Clark was getting hammered in ways that would have resulted in suspensions in the NBA, but in the WNBA, it was dismissed as rookies paying their dues. The problem wasn't just the physical play, it was the league's silence. Commissioner Kathy Engelbert gave interviews where she seemed more concerned with protecting the feelings of veteran players than protecting her biggest star. When asked about the treatment Clark was receiving, Engelbert's response was essentially, "That's basketball." No strong statements, no warnings to teams, no acknowledgement that something ugly was happening on national television. Media members made it worse. Instead of celebrating Clark's historic achievements, many spent their time diminishing her impact, claiming she was overhyped, that her fans were toxic, that the attention she received was somehow unfair to other players. Analysts who should have been hyping the league's golden goose were actively tearing her down. And through it all, Clark stayed silent. She took the hits, kept her head down, broke records, and smiled for the cameras. But her fans noticed. Sponsors noticed. And Adam Silver, watching from his office in New York, definitely noticed
what that could do for their sport. They understand that let's say 1,000 new eyeballs, 10,000 new eyeballs show up. If only they could get a fraction of those new eyeballs to become fans, they understand that's a win. They understand that that's a bonus. They understand that's not the opportunity that comes across them every single day. So they need to capitalize on this moment. We also had the speaking engagement that Caitlin Clark took part in last season. I'm assuming we're going to run it all back. We're going to have the speaking engagement, the panel.
The breaking point came during a private meeting that sources say turned into an absolute war zone. Silver had called Kathy Engelbert and several WNBA board members to discuss the sponsor crisis, and what started as a professional conversation quickly became a brutal reality check. According to insiders who were present, Silver didn't hold back. He reportedly told Engelbert that she'd mismanaged the most important moment in WNBA history, that her inability to protect and promote Caitlin Clark had cost the league tens of millions, and that sponsors were openly questioning her competence. The words catastrophic failure were allegedly used multiple times. Silver's frustration went deeper than just money. He'd spent years building the NBA into a global powerhouse by understanding one simple truth: you protect your stars. You build around them. You create narratives that make casual fans care. The WNBA had a chance to do exactly that with Clark, and instead they'd allowed a toxic environment where their biggest asset was being physically brutalized and media shamed for being too popular. What made Silver even angrier was the hypocrisy. The NBA had spent decades marketing individual stars, from Magic and Bird to Jordan to LeBron. The league understood that stars drive interest and interest drives revenue. But somehow the WNBA had convinced itself that promoting Clark would be unfair to other players, as if success was a zero-sum game. Silver knew better, and he was done being diplomatic about it. His message to league leadership was clear: fix this immediately, or there would be consequences. Publicly, Silver maintained his supportive stance on the WNBA, but behind closed doors, he was reportedly considering unprecedented interventions, including potential leadership changes and restructuring how the league operated. For Engelbert, who'd held her position since 2019, this was a nightmare scenario. The man who could end her career was telling her she'd failed at the most critical moment.
You see her at this event. You see the kind of noise that this is making. You see that this is trending on social media. You see that SportsCenter, Bleacher Report, all of these places, every media outlet is covering this, and you don't say anything. That's what we were talking about this whole season. We were correct. The fans that were saying that the WNBA seems to be trying to quiet the noise of Caitlin Clark, not letting her shine to her full ability, and not, in turn, not helping your own players in the league, we were right. And this event proved it, because the LPGA did literally everything correct. They capitalized on the moment. They found a way to put it on television. They allowed people to be there. Caitlin was signing autographs. They put their best golfer in the...
When sponsors started pulling back, they didn't just walk away quietly. They made their reasons brutally clear in private meetings with league officials, and those conversations revealed exactly how badly the WNBA had miscalculated. Brand executives told league representatives that they'd invested heavily in WNBA partnerships, specifically because of Caitlin Clark's potential to expand their reach into new demographics. They'd seen her college numbers, watched her draw millions of viewers to women's basketball games, and believed she could do the same for the professional league. Their marketing departments had built entire campaigns around her star power. When those same executives watched Clark get body-checked, elbowed, and verbally attacked while league officials did nothing, they panicked. This wasn't the narrative they'd paid for. They wanted to associate their brands with excellence, inspiration, and the rise of women's sports. Instead, they were getting controversy, violence, and a league that seemed more interested in protecting the egos of veteran players than capitalizing on its biggest opportunity. One sponsor reportedly told league officials, "We didn't pay millions to watch you destroy your own product." Another brand executive pointed out that every time Clark got hammered on court and the league stayed silent, it sent a message that the WNBA didn't value what made it valuable. The business case was simple: brands invest in stars because stars drive engagement, and engagement drives sales. When leagues protect and promote their stars, everyone wins. But when leagues allow their stars to be diminished, sponsors lose confidence that their investment will pay off. Some companies went even further, suggesting they'd redirect their women's sports marketing budgets to other leagues and athletes who were actually being supported by their organizations. The LPGA's treatment of Clark during her golf appearance became a perfect contrast, showing sponsors exactly what smart promotion looked like. The message to the WNBA was devastating: you had everything you needed to succeed, and you chose not to.
So amazing. She's so sweet, so nice. It was nice to kind of get to spend some time with her. We've messaged a little on Instagram beforehand, but to get to spend some time with her and to see the influence that she has on people, bringing people out here, and to see how...
Behind the scenes, the treatment of Caitlin Clark exposed something ugly about WNBA culture that sponsors found deeply concerning. There was a clear generational divide in how players and media responded to Clark's success, and it wasn't pretty. Veteran players who'd spent years fighting for recognition and fair pay watched this 22-year-old rookie walk in and immediately command more attention than they'd ever received. Instead of viewing Clark as the rising tide that lifts all boats, many saw her as a threat. The resentment was palpable, and it manifested in ways that made the entire league look petty and self-destructive. Social media became a battlefield. When Clark broke records instead of celebration, there were qualifications and dismissals. When she drew massive crowds, critics claimed it was only because she was white, completely ignoring that she was also the most talented guard in the league. When her fans defended her against cheap shots, they were labeled toxic and told to shut up. Players like Chennedy Carter and Dejounte Carrington made comments that seemed designed to diminish Clark's impact. Angel Reese's entire media strategy appeared built around positioning herself as Clark's rival, but in ways that felt more antagonistic than competitive. And through it all, league officials and many media members seemed more concerned with protecting the feelings of players who felt overshadowed than capitalizing on the moment. This created a PR disaster that sponsors watched in horror. Instead of a league united in celebrating its new star, the WNBA looked fractured, bitter, and determined to tear down the one person bringing in new fans and revenue. It was the definition of cutting off your nose to spite your face. The term tall poppy syndrome kept coming up in sponsor meetings, the idea that some people can't stand to see others succeed and will try to cut them down. That's exactly what was happening, and it was costing the league everything. Smart organizations recognize transformative talent and build around it. Dysfunctional organizations resent it and try to minimize it. The WNBA was proving which category it belonged to, and sponsors wanted no part of it. Then came the moment that perfectly illustrated everything wrong with the WNBA's approach. While the league was still figuring out how to handle Caitlin Clark, other organizations were rolling out the red carpet. The LPGA invited her to play in the Annika Pro-Am. And what happened next was a masterclass in how to capitalize on star power. The golf world embraced Clark completely. Nelly Korda, one of the best golfers on the planet, partnered with her and couldn't stop praising her talent and personality. Tiger Woods called her a natural. The event sold out instantly. Television coverage expanded. Social media exploded with clips of Clark's swing. Hashtags trended worldwide. And most importantly, the LPGA treated the entire thing as the golden opportunity. It was not as a threat to other golfers or a distraction from the sport. The contrast was devastating for the WNBA. Here was another sports league showing exactly how you handle a transcendent talent, and it made the WNBA's mismanagement look even worse. Sponsors noticed immediately. Some of the same brands that were frustrated with the WNBA started reaching out to the LPGA about partnership opportunities. Clark herself seemed noticeably happier and more relaxed at the golf event than she often appeared during WNBA games, and fans picked up on that instantly. Rumors started swirling that other WNBA players were exploring options outside traditional basketball. Sophie Cunningham was reportedly in talks with alternative leagues. Several players were said to be considering overseas opportunities that would pay them better and treat them with more respect. The 2026 WNBA season suddenly looked like a potential disaster, with free agency looming, and players wondering if staying in a league that couldn't capitalize on its own success was worth it. For Adam Silver and the sponsors who'd invested millions, this was the final straw. The WNBA hadn't just fumbled Caitlin Clark, they'd shown the entire sports world that they were incapable of recognizing and capitalizing on generational talent. Other leagues were literally taking notes on what not to do, using the WNBA as a cautionary tale of how organizational dysfunction can destroy opportunity. Adam Silver's response to all of this went beyond anger. According to multiple sources close to league operations, he began demanding fundamental changes to how the WNBA was run. First on his list was a complete overhaul of how the league marketed its stars. The NBA model, where individual players are promoted as heavily as teams, needed to be implemented immediately. No more downplaying star power to avoid hurting feelings. No more treating popularity as something to be ashamed of. Silver reportedly told WNBA leadership that Caitlin Clark should have been on billboards in every major city, that her games should have been promoted like championship events, and that the league should have been building its entire marketing strategy around her generational talent. The fact that this obvious strategy hadn't been implemented from day one was, in Silver's view, completely inexcusable. He also demanded stricter enforcement of rules protecting star players. The cheap shots, the flagrant fouls, the targeted physical play, all of it needed to stop immediately. Silver pointed to how the NBA protected players like Steph Curry and Luka Doncic, understanding that letting role players beat up superstars was bad for business and bad for the product. The WNBA needed to adopt the same approach, and referees needed to be instructed accordingly. There were also discussions about potential leadership changes. While nothing was confirmed publicly, insiders suggested that Kathy Engelbert's position was no longer secure. Silver was reportedly considering bringing in someone with actual experience in star-driven sports marketing, someone who understood that protecting your biggest assets was just basic business sense. The broader conversation included financial restructuring, media rights negotiations, and even discussions about how revenue sharing worked in the league. Silver understood that if the WNBA was going to survive long-term, it needed to embrace modern sports marketing instead of clinging to outdated ideas about fairness and equal promotion. For sponsors watching these developments, it was about time. But the question remained whether the changes would come fast enough to repair the damage already done. Some brands were willing to give the league another chance if serious reforms were implemented. Others had already moved on, convinced that the WNBA's organizational culture was too broken to fix. Now the WNBA faces a choice that will define its future. On one side is the path of continuing as they have been, treating stars as just another part of the collective, downplaying individual achievement and hoping that somehow equality of promotion will lead to growth. That path leads to irrelevance, and everyone knows it. The other option is radical transformation. Embrace Caitlin Clark and future stars like her as the generational talents they are. Build marketing campaigns around them. Protect them on the court. Create storylines that make casual fans care. Stop apologizing for success and start celebrating it. This is the path that every major sports league in the world has taken, and it's the only path that leads to sustainable growth and profitability. The irony is almost painful. For decades, the WNBA has fought for recognition, fair pay, and respect in the sports world. Then, finally, after 28 years, they got exactly what they'd been begging for: a player so talented and charismatic that she could break through to mainstream consciousness and bring millions of new fans with her. And instead of embracing that gift, they resented it, mishandled it, and watched as sponsors lost faith and other leagues took notes on their failures. Adam Silver understands what's at stake. The WNBA has probably one more chance to get this right. Caitlin Clark is still young, still incredibly talented, and still capable of being the face of women's basketball for the next decade. But she won't wait forever for a league that doesn't appreciate her. Neither will the sponsors who saw her potential. Neither will the fans who showed up in record numbers. The next few months will reveal everything. Will there be leadership changes? Will the league implement the reforms Silver is demanding? Will sponsors give them another shot? Or will we look back on 2024 as the year the WNBA had everything it needed to become a major sports league and chose to destroy it instead? Because right now, that's exactly what happened.